Hello, hello. Happy Friday. You ready to do some reading? Hope you've had a great week. And if you have read something awesome this week, by golly, be sure to drop it in the comments. So this week's weekend read, first chapter Friday, this is actually a debut novel from a young adult author, a YA author. And I actually had the opportunity to hear her speak. I think it was in March, back in March, a couple months or month or so, a few weeks back. And she actually has her second novel out, and so she was actually promoting that, but I was able to pick up her first novel as well. And her name is Astrid Scholte, and this week's novel is Four Dead Queens. And again, this is her debut novel, and it looks really good. I have not read it yet, but I just, my to read stack, as you can see, it keeps getting taller and taller, and this is one of them that's on there. So Four Dead Queens by Astrid Scholte. And like I said, I had the opportunity to meet her. So I got a signed copy. And the other book that I got of hers is signed as well. All right, so Four Dead Queens, let's get to it. It says a good, devious mix of some of the best fantasy and murder mystery that YA has had to offer. Carolee Corrington is a talented pickpocket in the nation of Kadara. But when a routine theft goes horribly wrong, Carolee realizes what she's stolen is actually a video of the four queens of Kadara being murdered. Hoping that discovering the intended recipient will reveal the culprit, valuable information that she can barter with, Carolee teams up with Varen Bolt, the messenger she stole from, to complete his delivery and uncover the murderer. But with Carolee and Varen each keeping secrets and lives hanging in the balance, everything is at stake and no one can be trusted. Four Dead Queens is an enthralling, fast-paced mystery where competing agendas collide with deadly consequences. Doesn't that sound good? Oh my gosh, so good. All right, so part one. We have part one, chapter one, Carolee. And I don't know if it's gonna, let me see if it's gonna go back and forth between different perspectives maybe. Yeah, it looks like it. All right, part one, Carolee. The morning sun caught the palace's golden dome, flooding the concord with light. While everyone halted their business and glanced up, as though it were a sign from the four queens themselves, we perched overhead like sea vultures, ready to swoop in and pick them apart. Who shall we choose today? McKeel asked. He was leaning against a large screen atop a building that displayed the latest queenly reports. He looked like a charming, well-dressed young man from Tyraya. At least that was what he looked like. Choices, choices, I said with a grin. He moved to drape his arm heavily around my shoulder. Who do you feel like being today? A sweet young girl? A damsel in distress? A reluctant seductress? He puckered his lips at me. I laughed and pushed him away. I'll be whatever makes us the most money. I usually picked my targets, but McKeel had been in a good mood this morning, and I didn't want to tip the boat. He's submerged easily into darkness these days, and I'd have done anything to keep him in the light. Okay, this is interesting. Being the English teacher, this contrast of darkness and light here, there's some symbolism going on already. I shrugged. You choose. He raised his dark eyebrows before tilting his bowler hat to further survey the crowd. The line of kohl around his lids made his deep-set blue eyes stand out all the more. Nothing escaped his scrutiny. A familiar smirk played at his lips. The crisp Concord air was clean, unlike the acrid tang of seaweed, fish, and rotted wood that pervaded our home down on Taraya's harbor. It was Kadara's capital and the most expensive city to live in, as it shared boundaries with Tyraya, Ionia, and Ludia. Archaea was the only region separated from the mainland. So these are the regions that the four queens reign over. So it's Tyraya, Ionia, Ludia, and Archaea. The stores on the ground level sold a variety of approved goods, including Aeonist medicines, the latest Ludist fashions and toys, and fresh Archaean produce and cured meat, all collated and distributed by Turian traders. Squeals of children, the murmur of business, and sighs of queenly gossip bounced between the glass storefronts. Behind the buildings rose an opaque golden dome, encapsulating the palace and concealing the confidential dealings within. The palace entrance was an old stone building called the House of Concord. As Mikhail searched for a target, he held his middle finger to his lips, an insult to the queens hiding inside their golden dome. When he caught my eye, he tapped his lip and grinned. Him, he said, his gaze landing on the back of a dark figure who descended the stairs from the House of Concord into the crowded main square. Give me his comm case. The target was clearly Aeonist. While we Turians were bundled up in layers to ward off the biting chill, he wore a tight-fitting black dermasuit over his skin, an Aeonist fabric made of millions of microorganisms that maintained body temperature with their secretions. Gross, but handy in the depths of winter. A messenger? I flashed Mikhail a hard look. The delivery would be of high importance if the messenger was coming from the House of Concord, the only place where Turians, Aeonists, Archaeans, and Ludists conducted business together. I'm sorry, I have like a cat hair or something that's like tickling my upper lip. Let's see. Mikhail scratched at his neck with ring-covered fingers, a nervous habit. Not up for the challenge? I scoffed. Of course I am. I was his best dipper, slipping in and out of pockets with feather-light touch. And remember, get in quick, get out quicker. He grabbed my arm before I could slip off the road. His eyes were serious. It had been months since he'd looked at me like that way, as though he cared. I almost laughed, but it lodged somewhere between my chest and throat. Don't get caught, he said. I grinned at his concern. When have I ever? I climbed down from the rooftop and into the crowd. I hadn't gotten far when an old man stopped abruptly in front of me and raised his hand to press 4 fingers to his lips in respect for the queens, the proper greeting, as opposed to Mikhail's middle-fingered version. I dug in my heels. My spiked soles gripped the well-worn cobblestones. I halted in time. My cheek brushed the back of his shoulders. Damn it! What was it about the palace that inspired such slack-jawed stupidity? It wasn't like you could see anything through the golden glass. And even if you could, so what? The queens didn't care about us, and certainly not someone like me. I slapped the cane from the old man's hand. He stumbled to the side. He turned, his face pinched in annoyance. Sorry, I said. I fluttered my lashes at him from under my large-brimmed hat. The crowd pushed in on me. His expression softened. No worries, my dear. He tipped his head. Enjoy your day. I gave him an innocent smile before slipping his silver pocket watch into a fold in my skirt. That would teach him. I stood on my toes to find my target. There. He didn't look much older than me. 18, perhaps. His suit clung like a second skin from his fingertips to his neck, covering his torso, legs, and even his feet. While I wrestled with corsets and stiff skirts each and every day, I couldn't imagine his outfit would be any easier to dress in. Still, I envied the material and the freedom of movement it allowed. Like him, my muscles were defined from constantly running, jumping, and climbing. While it was not unusual for a Turian to be fit and trim, my muscles weren't from sailing back and forth to Archaea or from unloading heavy goods at the docks. I'd long been entangled with the darker side of Turian. Hidden beneath my modest layers and pinching corsets, no one knew of my wickedness, my work. The messenger hesitated at the bottom of the House of Concord stairs, rearranging something in his bag. Now was my chance. That old man had given me inspiration. I dashed toward the polished slate stairs, fixing my eyes on the palace with my best imitation of awe, or rather slack-jawed stupidity, on my face, my 4 fingers nearing my lips. Approaching the messenger, I snagged my toe in a gap between 2 tiles and pitched forward like a rag doll. Inelegant, but it would do the job. I'd learned the hard way that any pretense could easily be spotted, and I was nothing if not committed. Ah! I cried as I crashed into the boy. The rotten part of me enjoyed the thwack as he hit the stones. I landed on top of him, my hands moving to his bag. The messenger recovered quickly, pushing me away, his right hand tightly twisting around the bag. Perhaps this wasn't his first encounter with McKeel's dippers. I stopped myself from shooting McKeel a glare, knowing he'd be watching eagerly from the rooftop. He was always watching. Changing tactics, I rolled, purposely skinning my knee on the stone ground. I whimpered like the innocent Tyrian girl I pretended to be. I lifted my head to show my face from under my hat to take him in. He had that honest look, evenly spaced eyes, full lips, high-defined cheekbones, and a proud jaw. The look they were engineered for. Curls of black hair framed his tan face. His skin was delicate, but hardy. Not at all like my pale, creamy skin, which flaked and chapped in the winter wind and burned in the blistering summer sun. His eyes were on me. They were light, almost colorless, not the standard Ennis brown, which guarded against the sun's glare. Did it help him see in the dark? "Are you all right?" he asked, his face giving nothing away. Ennis expressions were generally frozen, like the majority of their quadrant. I nodded. "I'm so sorry." "That's okay," he said, but his hand was still at his bag. I wasn't done with this charade just yet. He glanced at my black boot, which had scuffed where my toe had caught between the stones, then to my knee, cradled in my hands. "You're bleeding," he said in surprise. He did, indeed, think this was a ploy for his belongings. I looked at my white skirt. A blotch of red had spread through my undergarments and was blooming across my knee. Oh my! I swooned a little. I looked up into the bright sun until tears prickled between my eyes, then turned back to him. "Here." He grabbed a handkerchief from his bag and handed it to me. I bit my lip to hide a grin. I wasn't watching where I was going. I was distracted by the palace. The messenger's strange, pale eyes flicked to the golden dome behind us. His face betrayed no emotion. "It's beautiful," he said. "The way the sun illuminates the dome. It's as though it were alive." I frowned. Eunice didn't appreciate beauty. It wasn't something they valued, which was ironic, considering how generically attractive they all were. I bunched the hem of my skirt into my hands and began pulling it up over my knee. "What are you doing?" he asked. I swallowed down a laugh. "I was checking to see how bad it is." I pretended. I only then remembered where he was from. "Oh," I rearranged my skirt to cover my legs. How inappropriate of me. Intimacy was as foreign as emotions in Ionia. "That's all right," but he turned his face away. "Can you help me up?" I asked. "I think I've twisted my ankle." He held out his hands awkwardly before deciding it was safer to grip my covered elbows. I leaned heavily against him to ensure he didn't feel any shift in weight as I slipped a hand inside his bag. My fingers grasped something cool and smooth, about the size of my palm. The comm case. I slid it out and into a hidden pocket in my skirt. As soon as he had me on my feet, he released me as though he'd touched a month-old fish. "Do you think you can walk?" he asked. I nodded but swayed side to side. Novice dippers gave themselves away by dropping the act too soon after retrieving their prize, and my knee did hurt. "I don't think so." My voice was light and breathy. "Where can I take you?" "Over there." I pointed to an empty chair and table in front of a cafe. He held on to my elbow as he guided me over, using his broad shoulders to navigate the crowd. I fell into the chair and pressed the handkerchief to my knee. "Thank you." I tipped my head down, hoping he'd leave. "Will you be okay?" he asked. "You're not alone, are you?" I knew McKeel would be watching from somewhere close by. "No, I'm not alone." I put some indignation into my voice. "I'm with my father. He's doing business over there." I waved a hand vaguely at the surrounding shops. The messenger crouched to look under the brim of my hat. I flinched. There was something unsettling about his eyes up close, almost like mirrors. Yet under his gaze, I felt like the little girl I was pretending to be. A girl who spent her day at the Concord with her family to enjoy the spoils of the other quadrants. A girl whose family was whole. A girl who hadn't shattered her happiness. That moment passed. Something flickered behind his expression. Are you sure? He asked. Was that real concern? The cool of the metal case pressed against my leg, and McKeel's hot gaze was on my back. Get in quick, get out quicker. I had to disengage. I need to rest for a bit. I'll be fine. Well then, he said, glancing behind him to the House of Concord, his hand on his bag. As a messenger, his tardiness wouldn't be tolerated. If you'll be all right. He waited for me to refute him. I might have oversold my fragility. Yes, I'll be fine here, I promise. He gave me a stiff, earnest nod, then said, May the queens forever rule the day, together yet apart. The standard exchange of interquadrant goodwill. He turned to leave. Together yet apart, I recited back to him. Before he had taken a step, I was up off the chair and among the crowd. I clutched the comm case in my hand as I ran. Ooh, that sounds good. All right, so again, the first chapter of Four Dead Queens by Astrid Scholte. Her second book, like I said, this is her debut novel. And I'm trying to think if did it win stuff? I don't remember. Anyway, and her second book that just came out is called The Vanishing Deep. And maybe we'll do this one next week. I don't know, we'll see. This one is also signed, which is pretty cool. And she was you can see the cover's kind of a teal color, and she was using a teal Sharpie, and she was even wearing this kind of teal color when she was there. What's the word I'm looking for? The words just aren't coming when she was there to promote her book. So, and we even got like some little cards. All right, but again, that will be another time. But this week, Four Dead Queens by Astrid Scholte. So check it out. Let me know if you read it. Let me know what you think. And I look forward to hearing from you. And happy reading.